My name is Byron Baker. I'm a grandson of Phillip Baker, and I'm here on behalf of him today with my mother and my sister and my brother-in-law. When I think about Phillip and the things he did for us growing up, I was raised on the ranch there with my grandparents. He was born in 1909. We believe September 30th, but when you get back in time far enough, the days are a little bit fuzzy. So we go with September 30th, 1909. And when you think about how things just work out in life, none of us would have been here because in 1918 he was diagnosed with Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu was a variation on the influenza virus that circled the globe and killed millions of people. And he would tell me about it many years later, recounting to me that he was fevered for several days and hallucinating and things of that nature. Anyway, he grew up and attended schools off the reservation. He's a member of the Mandan-Hidatsa tribes. And he went to Pierre Indian School in Pierre, South Dakota, and then ultimately ended up going to the Shamawa Indian School in Shamawa, Oregon. He completed the 8th grade, and at that time, the 8th grade education was a pretty good education. You finished the 8th grade, and then you went to work. So he rode home in between boxcars from Oregon to Bismarck. I can't imagine what that trip was like, but he really wanted to come home. He spent time with horses when he was very young. When he was about 9, he was expected to ride herd and work like a man, and these are things that he passed along to us, the strong work ethic. He would often tell me, "Get up, let's get going. When you're dead, you can sleep forever." Things of this nature were known to come out of his mouth from time to time. And he would utter what I later found out to be were profound statements about life. Once I was in college and I came back to see him, and in a way I'll still never figure out, he knew I was skipping classes and, raising some hell basically. And he looked at me and he said, "You're missing school." I said, "Yes." And he said, "You should go every day because they're going to talk about something on that day when you're not there and you'll never get to hear it again." I thought about that one for a good long time. But the idea of working hard was something that he instilled in us. And he liked to help people, younger operators. He wanted to see younger ranchers make it. So he was known to help people do that. And he was always available. In the 1940s, due to the Garrison Dam, he and my grandmother had to move up closer to Mandan-Hidatsa, 18 miles away from Mandan-Hidatsa, North Dakota. And they put up a 2-room log house, cottonwood logs, and that's what we lived in until 1976. He was a successful rancher, and that's not an easy thing to do these days. It wasn't then either. It's a lot of hard work, and I was talking to a fella here last night, and he was saying he had to get home to his cattle. And I said, "Well, that's for sure. When you have cattle, you're more or less married to them." And that was my grandpa's life. He loved ranching, he loved cattle, he loved horses, and he worked hard enough until he ultimately paid off his debt with the FHA. So from about 1980 until the end of his life, he was debt-free. And he was pretty proud of that. And he would tell us, "Penny makes dollar. Penny makes dollar, boy," and things of this nature to try to get us to understand the value of money and take care of it. Take care of the ranch, take care of your tools, take care of your horses. Everything will take care of you. In any event, I know that he helped a lot of younger operators because he wanted them to have the opportunities he had. He took care of his horses, did all his own farrier work, and broke his horses, took care of his cattle, did everything that he needed to do there. And he would help people who came by, and he'd show them how to do it. Because the other thing he thought was that you do something for somebody, that's okay, but if you show them how to do it, now you've really done something. So I think of him as a teacher. And with his 8th grade education, he was able to give a lot of education to younger guys. And this had something to do with his Indian name. As a member of the Mandan-Hidatsa tribe, he had an Indian name, ltaaci. And what that meant was big pants. And I didn't understand that until I was older, but what it had to do with is that when he's gone, when Phillip's gone, whoever steps in is going to have some big pants to fill. And that was the origin of his name. He was fluent in 3 languages. He spoke Mandan, Hidatsa, English, and he was passable in some Lakota. But he preferred not to speak it, and most of the time, with me, we spoke Mandan just to irritate my grandmother, who spoke Hidatsa and English. My grandmother told me that he had a great gift for sarcasm. And so he thought that was hilarious, that at the dinner table, he and I spoke Mandan and she was left out of the conversation. I was too young to understand what was going on. I thought she understood what we were talking about, and I figured it out a few years later, and I gave a chuckle. But he wouldn't stop at anything for his cattle, for his horses. And I thought about this because I think about the things that, when I was growing up with him, I had heard that statistically farm accidents cause a lot of death nationwide every year. And I said, well, it's a good thing we live on a ranch then, you know. But we had a problem with beavers damming up the creek. And, you know, in typical fashion, he believed that if you try hard enough, you'll accomplish pretty much anything you need to do. And so when I was about 12, we were going down and chopping holes in the ice for the bulls. They flooded our bull pasture, so this meant war. He got a hold of some dynamite. The stick's about a foot long, and he got a hold of some blasting caps and some fuse. And so we're down there standing on top of the beaver dam, and he's telling me how to do this. Okay, take out your fuse and just jam that in the end and crimp it. And then take your jackknife and cut that fuse at an angle. Leave it about a foot long, that should be long enough. And then just take a stick and poke that dynamite, work it around a little bit, and then shove your cap in there, close the paper around it. And I said, Grandpa, is 3 sticks enough? He said, it ought to be. So there we are on top of the dam, and he said, now pack mud on it. Pack some mud down on it, and we'll blow this up, and then we won't have to chop holes in the ice for the bulls anymore. So I was okay with this idea too. I thought it was a great idea. So I lit the fuse, and I turned around to run, and there he is. He's still standing there. And he's, you know, in his late 60s at this point. Running is sort of out of the option. We got about halfway up the hill where we thought it was far enough, and there was this massive explosion, and mud and debris and logs flying through the air, and all we could do was cover, and we were covered head to toe in this smelly mud out of this beaver dam. And then he's kind of laughing, and he said, don't tell your grandma. And this was an example. There's nothing he wouldn't do for his livestock. And I think about the times that we almost killed each other, but we worked hard. And that was what he instilled in us. And ultimately, it led to the success of my entire family. All of my family members were well accomplished, and he told me to go to school. If ranching's tough, go to school. So I went and became a medical doctor. And that was due to him, my family. My grandmother, my grandfather, my mother, they all had a role. But it started with him. So I appreciate this time to be in front of you all today to tell stories about him. And that dynamite story was one of his favorites. But I thank you for your kind attention.
Would you reintroduce your mother? Would you